If you don't want to source all this stuff, we'll just ship it to you. You can put it together. You can sell the completed unit. You can do the inventor, of course, is going to be sought out for consultation. Companies that want to take this technology to market are going to want to have input, and so there's consulting fees. There could be licensing fees for advanced iterations that the inventor's working on. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the finished products that you can sell. As different companies come up with completed units, your site's an awesome place to advertise it. And also, there's the advertising value for other things that are related. So there are, I think there's a viable business model in an open sourcing energy technology, but we can't expect the inventor to be the one to take the risk that this is going to work. What we need is a group of people, including financial interests, who are willing to put the money up and say, okay, here's $2 million. You know, give $1 million to the inventor when the technology is proven and replicated. He gets the $2 million or $1 million, whatever the agreement is, and then you give it to the world. As you build an open source page, here are some of the components we found are important. You have an overview page. You have a page of instructions, how to make this thing, complete with circuits, diagrams, photos, etc. Legal information, are there any encumbrances on this technology? Is there a patent? A quasi-open source project would be one where you have a patent, but the inventor says, yeah, here, make it if you want, but if you're going to commercialize this, talk to us and we'll give you a license. Replications, you have a page where people who are making this thing can post information about the replication, videos. Here's my address, come by and take a look at it. You want to publish the data that comes from these replications. The latest, you have a news page for this project so people know kind of what's happening most recently. And I think most importantly, you want to have a discussion list particular to that project where people can chat back and forth. And then from that discussion list, you want to have somebody or several people who will accumulate the best information and then put it on the website where it can be presented clearly in an organized fashion so the newcomers don't have to weed through this big, long discussion, 10,000 messages to get all the important information. It's all compiled on the website. So you have the discussion and the website. It's a great combination of resources. There's various gradations we talked about of open source. One is just a complete giveaway. There's no intellectual property ownership in terms of retaining. You have to have permission from me. That would be a complete giveaway. One would be where there's a patent pending with permission to make copies, but talk to us about a license. Then the most extreme case would be something that's patented and allowing individual replications, but no sales whatsoever. Even for no profit sales, like if you make one and you just cover expenses, they wouldn't even allow that. So that would kind of be the extreme end of a quasi open source model. Here's one project that you see out there in the hall. We went up to John Bedini's lab with Peter Lindemann was there working with him at the time, and they had this little gizmo that has magnets around the edges, and it would spin. An input battery would charge an output battery, but not directly. It would make the wheel spin. The wheel spinning would then charge the output battery, and the mechanical energy of the wheel with the battery charge was purported to be more than the input from the input battery, because somehow there was some electromagnetic principle that the zero-point energy or something was being harnessed and being sucked into the system and showing up in the torque and in the battery. There have been about 500 replications of this device. That one out there is the first one that was built, and that's a fun technology. It's a kindergarten level of what may be the next generation of energy technology on the planet. A water fuel cell, eventually the idea of running your car on water. There have been a lot of stories about this that circulate in the news, different developments in electrolysis. There's a process where you can electrolyze water, put the hydrogen into the air intake of the vehicle, and it actually facilitates a more effective burn of the fuel. And so you get a much more viable process of, you get less emissions, greater efficiency, And if you can increase the efficiency of the hydrogen production, you can eventually get to the point where the economy goes from 15%, 20%, 50%, then 100%, where you're running completely on water. But eventually, if you start running cars on water, you're competing with culinary, and that's not going to be helpful. So there are some downsides to that. It may sound sexy, but you have to consider all things. Ammonia heat pump, this is one that we covered recently. This is a technology that was developed back in actually a century ago, very well proven, and kind of petered out in the 30s as oil prices just were so cheap. They couldn't compete with that. And so this technology was put on the shelf, but I think it's time to take another look at this, because if we use this technology, you could power your home at 1/5 the cost that you're paying for electricity right now. So this is a key technology. It's so old, you don't have any more patents that are relevant. So this is a prime candidate for a good open source energy project. The downsides to open sourcing: you don't have IP protection, the inventor takes the biggest risks, and experimenting with energy can be dangerous. So you have to have some legal language in your text. We don't take any responsibility for this. If you're going to play around, take responsibility for yourself. The advantages of open sourcing: this viral effect. If you have a really good technology, that thing could just explode on the planet. Imagine if you had a design for a magnet motor, for example, that could run your house, and it costs maybe $5,000 in parts. And here's a list of places where you can go get one in Chicago. Here's another page for places where you can get sources in New South Wales, Australia. And the internet and wikis make this kind of viral dissemination of information possible, so that you don't have to wait for the GEs and the Siemens technology and BP Energy. You don't have to wait for them to ramp up and make products available publicly. You can just go and build one. And you have enough mechanical people around that they can start making them for their neighbors. So the planet could be revolutionized with new energy technology in a very short period of time through open sourcing. You have the widespread collaboration where this guy over here comes up with a better way. He increases the efficiency by twofold if you make the magnets like this rather than that. Same magnet, but you get twice the output. You share this information. And the information is available for free, so the indigent can pursue it. And it moves away from this central power concept where you have the powers that be in power. It brings the power to the people. So it's a very next generation, new era type of concept and the way of approaching things. And once one technology breaks through that logjam, then you have all these other technologies that have been languishing for lack of funding, for lack of business expertise, for lack of patience. Somebody has a great idea, but they've got to put food on the table, so they put their thing on the shelf and they go work at McDonald's. Or stories like this happen all the time. Somebody just needs $10,000 to build this prototype. This little one kind of worked, but to really prove it to the satisfaction of the venture capitalist, he needs $10,000. But no one's willing to cough it up. So he's flipping hamburgers while he's got a technology that could bring energy to the world for 1/10 the cost. You had a comment? Question? Okay. So once that one technology goes out there and people realize, aha, there really is something outside the box here that science says is impossible, what else have they said is impossible? And so it kind of, all of a sudden there's this mad rush to attack this new question. That's going to be an exciting time when that first technology really breaks through, and we're really close. It's going to happen soon. We're sitting on stuff right now that's just like, man, I wish I could tell you about this. I wish I could tell you about that. We're under non-disclosure here. This guy doesn't want us to talk about it. But there are some really good technologies out there that are just waiting, to punch through. One of these days, an open source energy technology is going to come along. is there a philanthropist